Girl, stop playing. Welcome to another episode of the Girl Stop Playing podcast, where we encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. Today, we have a super special show. We have a very special guest coming into the building. Without further ado, let me just go ahead and welcome my girl, Passport Cutty is in the building. Hey, so I am so excited about this conversation. We were just talking before we came on, and I was saying, like, we've been connected for years. I don't even know where that initial connection came from, but I'm surprised.
Twitter.
Listen, I have so many people that I'm still connected with right now that came to Twitter, like pre-Instagram days. So y'all, if you really get social on social media, you can definitely create some great relationships and just meet some really dope people. So
like 10 years probably.
Listen, it's been so long. You came to my very first stop on my book tour in 2016. Mm-hmm. Like, we have definitely been connected over the years, and being able to have you on my podcast finally is definitely a treat. So I don't even want to attempt to give you a proper introduction. I am going to just allow you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Passport Cutty. I am the author of The M Man is for Money. It's a woman's guide on how to handle men and money and dating and relationships. I have turned into an unconventional life coach. I host, I vlog, I'm a Zodiac freak. Like, I do a little bit of everything.
I love it.
Yeah, it's been a good 10 years of me just talking about, like, relationships and sex on the internet.
But you know what? I think that it is so cool that we, like, our generation has proven our parents wrong. Like, you really can just monetize the things that you're great at, the things that you probably, I don't want to say got in trouble for, but the things that people discouraged us to do, we really figured out how to monetize this stuff.
Yeah. The taboo things that, well, there's so much value in being able to share your experiences with other people and people being able to relate, because that's kind of where even my advice calls and counseling calls ever even stem from. I always say to myself, I needed a me for me back then, I just needed somebody to talk to who I felt like, and I had short stints of relationships with people. Like, I remember one of my old professors was really a dope chick. She was like, I was like 20 years old. She was like 29. I mean, at that time, I thought 29 was so old, but I confided in her and stuff about things. But then, like, after the semester ended, it was kind of like, I didn't have that anymore.
Now what?
So there was like every now and then there was somebody, but it wasn't consistent enough. And a lot of things I was going through, I didn't want to tell certain people, and I didn't want to be judged. I was embarrassed. So, now when I got on Twitter, that was like my electronic diary. So I'm just spewing out all my thoughts, all my feelings, everything. And at first I was, I started off with 0 followers just like everybody else. So I'm just pouring my heart out because I'm anonymous. But then it started catching, people started like gravitating towards those tweets. And I'm like, oh, snap. And then I look up and it was like, oh, you got 300 followers. You got 600 followers. You got 2,000 followers. You got, 5,000. I'm like, whoa. And then it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah, but I think that showed you that, number one, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through these things, because people were not just entertained by your stories. They were connecting to those stories. And just like you said, you needed a you. And I think a lot of times we get into these spaces and we become successful because there's a need for it.
Yeah.
Most of us start these businesses just based on what we're passionate about, based on our personal experiences, what we're going through. We need an outlet. And by you creating your own outlet or using Twitter as your outlet, that just pulled people to you that could connect and could relate.
Just wanting to even hang out became, you were able to monetize that, It didn't matter what it was. Like, I just want to meet new people. I want to hang out, or I want to talk about relationships. So I want to, Me and Gigi started doing the pole parties. We,
Mhm.
you know, when I my book stemmed from me being on Twitter talking about guys, you know, giving me money or sugar daddies or whatever. And then people started emailing me and DMing me saying, Cutty, how do I get a guy to give me money?
Daddy?
How do I get a guy to give me money? And that's literally where it started. I was like 25 years old, and like so many people were emailing me and DMing me, and they kept on saying, asking me the same question. So then I finally just started copy and pasting the same exact email to everybody. I was like, I'm gonna put it in the book. I'm gonna put it in the book. And 5 years later, I was able to. Thankfully, I didn't do it that prematurely because there was more that needed to happen. You know.
Yes. Yes. And it happens at the perfect time, right? And sometimes we think, well, dang, I was supposed to do it at this time, but you weren't supposed to.
Oh,
you thought
sure.
you were. You
Oh,
thought you were, but now look how great, you know, the story is, or how many more lessons you have.
Yeah, when I was writing the book, the writing coach, the book started off as 40 pages of just how to get money out of a guy, right? Like just little tips. And she was like, "Oh, is this supposed to be like a short book?" I was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be like one of them little books at the front of Urban Outfitters or Anthropology, like just one of those little books." She was like, "Well, there's so much, you know, this. I feel like you have so much more to offer in here, you know." She said, "So it doesn't seem like you're, you know, doing all of this right now anymore. Like, what happened?" I was like, "Girl, I got a job." I was like, you know, and then she said, "Oh, well, put that in the book." I was like, "Wait, what?" She was like, "You know, what's life after running around after guys for money or having a sugar daddy? Like, what do you do after that?" I'm like, "Yeah, go get a job." She's like, "Yeah, well, let them know that too." I was like, "Oh."
I love it. I love it. I love it because you literally put your true experiences, your lessons learned. And I went on Amazon and I read the reviews, over 300 reviews from people who are like, I needed this. I didn't even know I needed this. So and so told me I needed to get it, and I'm so glad that I did. And I think because of the space that you're in, you are definitely an unconventional life coach. I don't know if you go by the Hoe Coach anymore.
Oh, no.
No, that's old.
No, I used to. And that was actually a joke that I ran with. I was on Twitter one day and I was saying something, and some guy just said to me, "You're like a hoe coach." And I was like, "That's so funny." I was like, I'm stealing that. And then I ran with it for a little while. But then as I started getting more mature, I was like,
yeah. This is the thing. I don't think Hoe Coach does you justice for all that you're doing, because I think that even though your original intention, like what you thought you were setting out to do, may have been this one thing, you're now it's so much more. So I want to talk about,
because that was pre-therapy.
Right. Yeah. And it's an evolution, right? So I want to talk about, I do want to talk about that though, because I ain't never had a sugar daddy, right? I always said to not only have I not had a sugar daddy, I be telling all my business on here. So
Girl,
not only have I never had a sugar daddy, I always told myself I never dated men for money. Don't judge me, Cutty. Okay, not that I
used to be a sugar mama.
Listen, exactly. I was more on the other side, not intentionally. That's just the way the cookie crumbled. However, I always said, you know, my husband is going to be the one that does these things for me. And, you know, luckily that's kind of working out for me. So, but I think there are a lot of women out there who see having a sugar daddy as like this glamorous thing. So I want to talk about like what it's really like. Like, can you tell us the good, the bad, the ugly, even though this is your former life?
And not really, you know, like not necessarily, because I'm still, I'm not married right now. So whoever I date is going to have to spend money. And I mean, it's not necessarily going to be considered a sugar daddy probably, but hey, I'm not above it. So, the sugar daddy, totem pole is very, you know, the spectrum is very grand. Like it's so vast, because you have people do expect it to be that myth of this guy who just gives you all this money for for no reason, right? Like he just gives it to you. That's what people think the sugar daddy is, when in reality, most sugar daddies do want something back. And we know what that usually is, right? And they may not be as aggressive as some, but eventually some people, some people are more patient than others. Let's just say that. But for the most part, the whole idea of I'm just going to find this man who's just going to give me all his money for no reason is close to none, And so the average sugar daddy right now is probably married, old, ugly, fat, funny looking, like there's not this. I tell people all the time, like, if you thought he's not any of those things, then he's just a boyfriend, like he's just possibly your ex-husband. Like, I don't know why you think that you're gonna find like this really fine eligible bachelor that's a sugar daddy, like, so
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So with the sugar daddy thing, I always tell people, like, they give money because there's a need that they want, whether it's their ego stroked, sex, companionship, somebody on their hip like 24/7, somebody to just freaking listen to them all the time. They definitely want stuff. And a lot of women pretend like they're not doing anything for the money, but they are. Sometimes it's just phone sex, sometimes it's pictures, sometimes it's like, it's so it varies.
It depends on the man.
Yeah, it varies. But and then there's old sugar daddies, there's young sugar daddies, there's black sugar daddies, there's white sugar daddies, there's Indian sugar daddies. Like, everybody has their own reputation. Like, there's a reputation that African guys trick, like they spend a lot of money. And then there's a reputation that the old white guys are still, at the top of the food chain. Like, and then, you hear that the Arabs spend a lot of money, like you hear all of these stereotypes, and it just all depends. But you are going to be expected to do something. Something. I mean, and it all depends on whether you're willing to do it or not, because for some women, I will tell you this, for some women, even the ego stroking is too much. Like, even Nicole's 10 times a day, hey babe, how are you doing? What you doing? Because like sometimes these guys are like super annoying, right? Like, you don't like them, you don't want to talk to them, so them calling you like even 3 to 10 times a day, you're like, oh, But and so for some women, they're like, listen, I can't, like, it ain't even worth it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. So, and that, in my opinion, was why I was like, no, I can't do this, because my face is gonna tell you how I really feel. Like, what's coming out of my mouth does not matter. What I really think is gonna be on my face, and I can't pretend like I like you and I don't really like you.
I can.
How, Cutty? How?
It all depends on. Well, here's the thing. I am very interested in people, regardless, right? Like, I'm not so. I like hearing stories. I like people being able to express themselves, tell me their stories, tell me about their life, whatever. So I will genuinely be interested in that. So that will make a guy feel like he's being listened to, he's interesting. And sometimes he really is. I might not like him physically. I might not want him to be my husband. I might not want him to, I might not want to have a child with him, but I'm genuinely interested in his story or even his success, like, gotcha. I've gotten so many gems from, because they have money, right? So how are they making money? What did they do? Where did, so I'm interested in hearing that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then they think that I really like them, I guess.
And it works. And they're getting what they want. You're getting what you want. Have you read the book Gold Digger by Alicia Dunham? Goal.
No.
Like, way back. No, it's old. This is like where the gold digger, like, she I'm pretty sure.
No.
But she said something similar. Like, she found herself in these sugar daddy relationships. Basically, what she got from them, other than money, was their business strategy.
Yes.
Like, she was picking up clues from all of these people. And I feel like, I mean, we've dated, have dated all of the bums, all of the losers, all of the people who I did not necessarily
Like
gain.
you were teaching stuff too.
Right. So it's like we have this not a misconception, but we have this idea of what like a gold digger does, and that thing, but you're not necessarily winning on the other side unless you're being strategic. So I want to ask you this too about the high value man conversation, because I think that it's similar to what you just said about sugar daddies. Like people think that sugar daddies are just, this thing, but there's a lot that comes with it. Yeah. Same is for these high value men. High value men, if you're defining them as like, they're wealthy, they have these networks, they have accomplished all of these things. Yeah. They want, they expect certain things. Like this man has reached this level, he expects his woman to be X, Y, and Z. And I think that's similar to the sugar daddies. Have you experienced, or what's your take on the high value man that every woman seems to want, but not necessarily knows what comes along with it?
So that's the problem with the high value man, is that people think that is a cookie cutter. It's not a cookie cutter thing, but people think that it is. And it actually is more about personality than anything, right? So everybody's different. So there could be, I mean, I don't know, I'm more into my signs and all of that stuff, but I'm like obsessed with zodiac. So I'm just going to use this as an example. So, I'll feel like, certain like Aquarius men, they like their equal, like they want.
My husband is an Aquarius, Cutty. Go ahead and tell me some about stuff, girl.
Okay. They want a boss bitch. Like they like that. They definitely feel like they don't want the girl who is, they don't really want the girl who's struggling. They don't really want the girl that they gotta, like they are attracted to the women who got their shit together, because, and they don't want anything from those women, right? They just want to know that, they just want that sense of security, and they like that power couple type of thing, right? That's not the same as like a Gemini man. Like a Gemini man don't want his equal. He wants his own kingdom, and then he wants to find a bad bitch that he could put in, like situate, like here, I'm gonna place this woman, like, so, and they could both be quote unquote high value. They could both have success. Okay. They could both have the best of everything. They could be single, they could be, available, all of that stuff. But what they want in another woman, is going to, what they want in a woman is going to look different. So for some men, they don't appreciate the woman who has a busy schedule, making her own money, wants to do things together. They don't like that, because some men, they don't like that, because they feel like it just takes away from their dominance, their control, So when people, and that's the thing, sometimes it really doesn't work out, because some people believe that high value men want high value women, and that's not true. Like, it's just not true, because just because he's a high value man doesn't mean that he's not a little insecure. He's not a little, he doesn't have these personality traits that make him want to be in control, or, that he doesn't want his ego stroked. Like
every man wants, listen.
Yeah. Like people don't pay attention to the fact that it's still personality, even with like a job, right? I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, I'm so nervous, because I'm like, listen, what's on the paper probably means less if y'all went to the same college, because the person, it's still a human factor, and the emotional aspect of it is going to usually trump, right? Yeah. So when women feel like they have all of these milestones to reach, and to get a certain type of guy, I'm like, and that's great, but then guess what? You still might get this guy who wants you to dumb that down and let him be, the king. And some women, they can't do that. So,
and I think self-awareness is so important, because most women in America that have an Instagram account that has watched reality TV. Like we have in our head this Cinderella, I want this man to, do all of these things, or I want this particular type of man.
Yeah.
We don't think about what comes along with it or what that means, what your role will be. Because like you said, I literally was in a situation where I was dating the man that wanted to just insert me into his already successful kingdom.
Yeah.
No, I gotta build, I have to bring something to the table. But there are women out there who would gladly just be inserted. So I think knowing who you are and what you want is that's the bottom line.
Yeah. And then here's the thing. Just because that's what they need for their personality doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything. It doesn't mean don't go to school, don't work, don't make your money. But they don't want that on display, right? And if you can just get your coin and be quiet and let him take care of everything, it might work for you, right? Because, and you know that if God forbid anything doesn't happen, anything doesn't work out between y'all, you're good. But if every single day you're coming home and you're like trying to download and tell him everything that you got going on, he might be like, like I don't want that. I don't like that. That's not, that's not fitting well with what I want. Now, I mean, personally, I do have my own identity, so I really probably couldn't be with somebody who doesn't want me to, shine in a sense. But for some people, they're more reserved. It might work for them, and there's no right or wrong. It's just really trying to decide if it works for you. Right. Yep. And then the last part about it is that so many women care about what the guys look like on paper. And I'm like, that doesn't translate well for a relationship in person, in reality, because you're miserable. You're miserable.
Right. But y'all look good on paper. Y'all the power couple, but behind closed doors, you're. So this is why I think, I know we've been talking about, the sugar daddy and the this and the that, but I read your bio. I did all my things to get ready. I'm like, I gotta make sure I put some respect on there. I love that you said you help women learn how to speak up. Because whether you are single, married, going through something at your job, dealing with your mama, like for some reason, a lot of women feel voiceless. Like we have a hard time finding our voice, being confident enough to speak up, like verbalizing or communicating what we desire, what we deserve. Why do you think that is? And what are some of the tips or tools that you're sharing with your clients to help them navigate that?
Well, the first thing I tell people is that you care more about what they think than they caring about what you think, or you caring about what you think, right? It's always about what the other person, I don't want to say this because I don't want them to think this about me. I'm like, the truth? So like, I'm going to use this as an example, right? So, I don't want to tell him that I want to go to this 5-star restaurant or this 5-star resort or whatever, because I don't want him to think that that you like that stuff. The truth, it's the truth. So you don't want him to think that you like fine dining. You don't want him to think that you care about the hotel.
It's ridiculous when you say it like that.
Right. So I got to hide that because I don't want him to think that, I'm shallow and stuff like that. So let's just go stay in the Best Western, and no shade, but I'm just saying anything, let's go stay in the 2-star hotel because I want to look humble. I don't want to look shallow. I don't want to look materialistic. I don't want to look bougie, stush, whatever. Right. And I am like a firm, but yes, I believe in compromise. Right. But then there's also like some things where it's like, men, and this is general, right? Like men probably are not thinking, I don't want her to think this about me, so I'm not gonna say or do this, right? So like you go on a date with a guy, he puts his hand on your thigh, he kisses you, you're texting, he says something sexual or out of the way, he sends you a dick pic, he, asks you, have you ever had a threesome before? Like all types of stuff. Like I'm just using these random things that we may think is super inappropriate, but they tried their luck. Like they tried it, you know. So I always say, I mean, if they're gonna try their luck, I'm gonna try my luck, right? And for some things, it's all a conversation. Everything is a conversation. I have totally had conversations with men where I told them, I remember saying something like, I don't know. It was something about like going to Miami or something. I was like, yeah, I want to stay at the one hotel, but it's like $1,000 a night. The guy was like, oh, I ain't paying no $1,000 a night. I'm like, damn, you know, but at least I knew at that moment that he not with that. Okay, I'll compromise. We'll stay at the W or we'll stay somewhere else, you know, like whatever. But it wasn't like I wasn't going to say it because I didn't want him to think. I just threw it out there. It's always bait for me. Like I'm going to throw it out there and I'm going to see where you fall, like on the topic. So whatever it is, whether it's the travel thing, if it's on sex, you know, if it's, you know, if it could be something like, it could be anything, whatever it is, I'm just going to throw the bait out there. And it becomes a conversation, you know, like I remember this guy had bought me, before I even met him, he bought me these $1,000 pair of Louis Vuitton sandals. And I go and he gives them to me. And then like the next week I sent him a picture of a bag and he says to me, oh, you need your nails done. And I was like, well, damn. I was like, my appointment is tomorrow because it was grown out. And then he was like, I said, my appointment is tomorrow. And I said, oh, you going to pay for them? And he was like, no. He was like, I don't pay for nails. And I'm thinking to myself, how you don't pay for nails? You just let me $1,000 pair of shoes. And he's like, no, that's for you. That like nails, that's your grooming stuff. I don't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so now I know he ain't paying for nails. But, you know, it wasn't, I'm not, and don't get me wrong. I'm not, even though I'm considered a pro, I still have to figure out a strategy with every single guy to see how I'm going to throw what I want to say out there to him. If I'm not confident enough or comfortable enough to just say it, then I'll figure out a way to get it out there because I want to know where he's at on
where's
like
the boundary. You're gonna toe the line until you figure it out.
Yeah. And I'm never caring more. My objective is always, how am I gonna get it out? Not what is he gonna think about me, or no, I don't want to say that, because it's like me just trying to find that thing based on like his personality and like our conversation. And then I just go for it. And guess what? Honestly, sometimes if it's too hard for me, I'll be like, I don't like this one because I'm not comfortable enough to say what I want. Right. And then that makes me not even like you. So
wow.
I mean, and that doesn't happen often, but if I really do feel like this person is a little, our personalities just don't go, right? Like I'm like, oh no, I'm scared of him. I'm good.
I think that is so like just the opposite of what I feel like little girls are raised to, like how we're raised to be. Like we're not, I wasn't, let me speak for myself. I think that I'm a pretty like assertive person, but if it comes down to you being uncomfortable or me being uncomfortable,
right,
I'm gonna choose to be uncomfortable. Like I'll figure this out versus me making you uncomfortable. And you really are putting everybody above your, above yourself, putting everybody's needs above you, and you don't really realize that's what you're doing until you in therapy.
You know, and with sometimes it's the outcome or the result, the response rather, is probably not even near what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You know, so like, let's say, for example, I had a Cutty call recently where somebody was like, you know, he ain't doing nothing. You know, like I need him to do some stuff for me. Like, you know, he's not doing anything. And I said, well, at this point, what do you lose? You know, like you're not, if he already not doing anything, you might as well just tell him what you want, because either you're going to get it or you're not. And then
you're not getting it.
Right. Yeah. You're not good. If he basically confirms you're not getting it, then you could go. Right. Right now you're waiting to see if he's ever going to figure it out on his own. Right. And you might just need to say like, this is what I want. But it's almost like sometimes people give off this persona and this aura like they don't necessarily need anything or want anything. So sometimes it's not always, it's just people's perception, right? Mm-hmm. So like even your friend who has like a lot of stuff for Christmas, you're like, I don't know what to buy her. She be buying Chanel and Dior and stuff like that. I don't know what to get her. When really she probably could totally appreciate some socks, a scarf, a hat, some, you know, and you kind of like get nervous because you're like, I don't have the money to buy her the type of stuff that she likes, but she's probably appreciative of other little things that you never even thought of. So it's like, he may be on the same type of, you know, in the same perception where it's like, oh, she got all her stuff together. She don't need me. She don't, like, whatever. When, or if you were to say like, oh, babe, I want to go to this play on Thursday, whatever. He's like, oh, that's something I could do for her. You know, like, yeah, let's go, you know. And I'm just, like I said, that's just an example, whatever. But just always throwing out, for me, my strategy is baiting. I mean, is the bait. Like, just always throwing out what I like, what I want, my need, my want, like everything, and see if they catch on to it. And if they don't, then I just move on to the next thing.
So, okay, so let's get into this book. The M in for man is for money.
No, the M in man is for money.
Girl, get me together. The M in man, I got it on my notes. The M in man is for money. And part of your description, I pulled this part out. It said how to condition men to foot the dinner bill and household bills. And I need to talk about it because you just said, side note, we good. You know, I got to make sure everybody we good over here. But you just mentioned that this man bought you these $1,000 shoes before you even met him. And somebody listening to this is like, they Scooby-Doo ears went up. So how are you conditioning men? Is it just what you're saying? Like you just are throwing things out there? You're throwing the bait out there and seeing how it goes?
Well, that particular situation, I literally just posted it on my Instagram story. I said, who wants to buy me some shoes today? And don't worry, I'll take it easy on you. They're only $965. And I had 3 or 4 guys hit me up like, you know, hey, what's up? Like, so one said something like, I don't mind buying you some shoes, but can we get to know each other first? No. That's not what the post said. Right, because you asking me to get to know you first. I asked for the shoes first. I'll get to know you after you get the shoes. But so he went back.
Somebody bit.
Somebody said, which shoes? What size do you wear? And I said, so I sent him the shoes. I told him the size. He said, give me till Saturday and make sure that you find something to wear because I want to take you out. I'm like, okay, who is? And I pressed follow. And that's how that happened, literally. Like, there was nothing more to it. But when it comes to, like, I've had so many guys buy me stuff before ever having sex, seeing them, like anything. And it, again, is just the conversation. I remember, and this is a good example because this particular guy, it was definitely, we were introduced to each other, I guess, on the internet. And he says something to me, we're talking. And then finally, I'm just like, sometimes because I'm more aggressive and assertive, and I'm also like kind of playful and funny. So I don't mind saying certain things where it's like, I'm saying it in a like jovial way where they don't take it offensively. So I was like, so tell me, what do you pay for? And he was like, what? I was like, what do you pay for? I was like, there's so many different types of guys. Like guys pay for, and he was like, what you mean, like hair or nails or something? I was like, yeah, but my nails ain't $40. And he was like, so how much is your nails? I was like $200. And he was like, $200? He was like, he said, well, how long they last for? And I said, a month. And he was like, oh, okay, that's not that bad, actually. Like, $200. Oh, he was like, all right. And then I said, yeah. And then we started talking about, I said, yeah. I said, no, I just want to know what type of guy you are because, like, I will stop talking to a guy who I feel like is not, I forgot what word I used at the time, but like doesn't look out for me in a sense. That's what I said. And I told him the story about this Uber story, which I met this guy. Long story short, we hadn't met yet. But I was out with my friend, and we didn't drive, so we had to take the train home. The trains got cut off at 10 o'clock, and by the time we got down to the train station, the trains were cut off, and it was $130 for me to get home on the Uber and $100 for her to get home. I mean, we were gonna pay it, but he texted me at the moment and was like, this is not the same guy. I'm telling him a story about another guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he texted me at the moment and he says, hey, what you doing? I was like, oh, just sitting at this bus stop right now trying to figure out how to get home, because Uber is $130. The train is cut off. Uber is $130 and Lyft is 30 minutes away. And he was like, oh, okay. And he was like, oh, where are you at? So I told him, and he said, oh, that's one stop away on the train from my house. I said, I just told you the train is cut off. And he was like, oh, okay. And then, some time goes by, probably like an hour goes by, right? Cool. I go home. I get the cab home. And an hour later, he texts me and he says, so how'd you make out? And I'm like, snip, snip. Because if he would have never hit me back until the next day or whenever, I would have been totally fine with it. I would have been like, oh, okay, he fell asleep, he got distracted, da, da, da. I would have. But it seemed as if you waited until I figured it out myself, and then you're going to hit me and be like, now listen, nothing wrong with that. Hey, but that's not the type of guy that I'm used to. I'm used to a guy that will fly to, oh no, I don't want my woman sitting at 10 o'clock in the night, or 10 o'clock at night in New York City on a bench no, where you at? I'm coming to get you. Or let me send you a cab. No, which that's the type of guy that I like. Listen, if that so I stopped talking to him, and then like 2 years later he was like, what the hell, what happened? And I was like, you want to know what happened? So I told him the truth. He said, you should have just asked me. I'm like, because I didn't want to ask him, because we hadn't even met yet. I'm not going to ask you for those type of things we haven't even met. But if you don't offer, you're probably not my type.
Yeah, so, I think those little red flags, though, those are the things that women ignore. And then when he further disappoints you by doing literally identical to what he did when you ignored it, then you're mad.
Yeah. So for me, like with certain guys, I will either put out the bait, or it would just be a conversation. And that question, so what do you pay for, is not as scary as you think, right? Because it's literally, it could be like this super generic, general conversation that you have. Like, so tell me what type of guy you are, like in relationships. Like, what type of stuff do you pay for? That should not make some man mad. Like, if you can't answer that question, I didn't ask you for any money, right? Like right now in this moment, this question, I didn't ask you for a thing. I asked you for your thoughts. I asked you for an answer. That's all. So you could totally say, I'll pay for shit, fuck out of here. Like, you got a job, and that's fine, right? I'm just trying to speed up the process and trying to figure out,
what are we doing?
Yeah, like what type of guy you are.
So okay, you mentioned the Cutty calls a couple of times, and I already know that there are some people tuned in who are like, Cutty call, wait, I can call her and she can tell me how to do this. So I do want you to just mention really quick a couple of are there even some common things that you like, reoccurring things that women want to know, aside from how do I get this man to buy me stuff? Or is that typically the conversation?
Oh, no. It's usually not about how do I get this guy to buy me stuff, which that's only like 10% of the calls. The call is for whatever you want, right? People call me about business. People call me about confidence, self-esteem. People call me about their relationship, friend drama. The sugar daddy stuff, going up, traveling, wardrobe, because I used to be a personal shopper. They call me for everything and anything they want. So, but most of the calls are about like dating and relationships. And a lot of it is really just, like I said, not knowing how to navigate with men about how to get what they want out of the situation. So a lot of it could, a major theme is like the mixed signals, right? Like people, personally, I don't believe in mixed signals. People do take that very, very personally, that a guy will say they're not ready for a relationship and then proceed to still take them out and have sex with them and do things with them. And I'm like, that's just being nice. That's just dating. That's not, that's not a crime. It's like, hey, you said you didn't want to be in a relationship, but then you took me to the barbecue and you took me to, you took me to the movies and you took me to on vacation. And I'm like, he likes you. Like, or he wants to see if he likes you. Right. Like, but that's a lot of it. Another common theme is just, I would say, miscommunication, which is what people perceive things to be is just not always what it is, even in friendships. You know what I mean? Like, people will be like, oh, she didn't call me, so she must have not wanted to go out. And I'm like, so then they'll read me a text thread and I'm like, oh, well, her last message did say, let me know when you're free. You didn't say anything. They're like, but what? She said, and that's just a very
but having that outside, that even like what you said at the beginning, like you were using Twitter as your outlet because you did want to talk to certain people. It sounds like you really are just like the listening ear who have these questions or these issues or these things that they might feel are like petty that they don't want to talk to other people about. They're like, yo, let me go Passport Cutty.
Yeah.
So I love
but
that.
Also, a lot of it is, okay, people are in toxic relationships, right? That is very embarrassing to people. I've displayed my toxic relationships on the internet for years. And I've also went to therapy and got all these tools and, spoken to so many people, and I've gotten over the hump. And now I get to use that same advice and those tools to share with other people who are going through it as well. So it's very isolating when you're in a situation where you just don't know how to get out of it. You don't want to tell anybody. You're embarrassed. You're ashamed. You feel alone. And so I'm definitely a safe space for that because, people don't like, I've talked about having abortions on Twitter, right? Like some people are scared to talk about that, like, so they're like, oh, well, I'm pregnant right now. I don't know what to do. Let me call and see, what she thinks or like what her feedback is, which I'm never going to tell you, girl, go get an abortion. Like, I'm not going to do that, but I'll help you put all the cards on the table for you to decide what is the best option for you, like the reality of it all, like, let's say, for example, a lot of people call me and tell me like, oh my God, he does nothing or he does all this stuff and I love him so much. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're obsessed, right? Like, it's an infatuation. Like, and nobody takes offense to that because by the time the end of the call comes, they realize, oh yeah, I probably didn't really love him. I guess I probably didn't. And they realize that those intense feelings that they were feeling were other things like fear or, codependency, obsession, they just, they don't realize that it just all seems like love because it's so intense. But by the end of the call, they're like, maybe I can move on from this. Like, maybe I don't need to slip my wrist over this guy, Yeah. So
I love it. And really just like releasing. Sometimes that's all it's about. Like, not even necessarily you giving the next step, but some people don't have anybody to talk to. So just having somebody, having that safe space is so important. We talk about therapy here on the show all the time because if you've gotten yourself to this point using all the tools, all the resources, all the things that you have, and sometimes you need something outside of that. So I love that you're offering this because the stigma with therapy in our community keeps people out, keeps people from getting the help that they need. So you are so much of a like you disarm people. It's like, that's just my homegirl. Like, I can talk to her. She's not gonna judge me. She's not gonna make me feel crazy. And it's not the stigma attached to going to a therapist. So,
and I still push them towards therapy, right? I have like a lot of people who are in therapy and they still call me weekly and they're like, oh, I couldn't tell my therapist this now. Let me tell you this. or they just don't feel like they relate. Maybe the therapist is like a man, or the therapist is older, or the therapist, like they just don't have this connection with the therapist in that way. The therapist might be good, but they just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, or I'll be on the phone with somebody and be like, so what your therapist said? They were like, what you just said. Same thing that you just said, because I use a lot of tools from therapy. I do so much reading. I've used all my experiences. I'm still it's like the medicine and the candy, right? It's like you come because you think that you're going to get one answer, when in reality, I'm still giving you the healthy. And if it's not, I will literally give you a disclaimer. I'll be like, listen, now I don't know what your therapist is going to tell you about this particular situation, but I'm going to tell you to just lie. Like it depends on what it is. I might be like, girl, this goes against everything but I'm not going to tell you and know that it's probably not the best route, but it depends on what the situation is, right? So I'll be like, listen, they probably not going to tell you to do this, but I would lie. I'm gonna take that one to the grave. We gonna take that one to the grave. We just gonna.
It's a different approach. It's just a different approach than your traditional therapist, but it's needed. It's needed, and especially if you got people who are paying a therapist and then still coming to you for confirmation. That just proves that you are definitely in a much needed space. So for the people who, last question. This should have been my first question, but it's my last question. Tell us where you got the nickname Passport Cutty.
So Passport Cutty came from a Chris Rock stand-up from about 10 years ago. He says that men can't go backwards sexually. Like once you do something new with a man sexually, he's like, do that little thing you did last week again. And he says women can't go back in lifestyle. So once you upgrade a woman and introduce her to the finer things in life, she don't never want to go backwards. Like every guy after that, she wants to, continue on with that. So he said, ladies, remember the first time a guy ever took you on vacation? He said, after that, you want every guy to take you on vacation? He was like, oh, this is passport pussy. And I'm like, ha! That is me. Because that's exactly how it happened. The first, and that's why I said, like, I was a little sugar mama at first. And then I met a guy, and I tell these stories in the book, The MMA is for Money. The first guy that I met that started spending money on me, I was like, guys have money? Oh my God. And from that point forward, it was like, hello. That's my new type. That's who I like now. So I just changed the pussy to Cutty.
I love it. I never knew that. So I definitely was curious. And I'm sure somebody was like, but why is she Passport Cutty? So I'm glad we got that out there. I know the people are like dying to get a copy of this book.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to sign up for a call. So please let them know where they can find you online and how they can connect with you on Instagram.
Yeah. So I am Passport_Cutty, Cutty on Instagram and Twitter. The link for the Cutty calls is in my Instagram in my link tree. It's the 30 minutes or 1 hour. You can talk about whatever you want. You call as many times as you want. Doesn't matter. It's anonymous, which is even better. Some people do tell me like, hey, I'm so-and-so online, or they might even DM me afterwards or whatever, but it's anonymous. So that's the beauty of it. You really can share whatever you want without feeling judged. The book is called The MMA is for Money. It's on Amazon. There's an Audible. I narrate it. It's on ebook, mostly everywhere. And I have a drinking game and a Zodiac game, and like I'm coming out with all these new products this year. So
I love it. I'm excited for you. I have enjoyed this conversation. I know that it's been so full of so many gems that I know the people are going to love it. So I
thank you.
Thank you. This has been a long time.
Thank you so much.
And thank y'all.
I wish I was there.
Listen, next time we're gonna do an in-person interview.
Yes.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.